All right, this is a meaning-based intervention for reading. It may be a little low, but let's see where we're at. There are 10 modules, and anywhere from 5, we can make it 4. This is adaptable sessions or lessons within each one. So this is kind of what it is. It's a series of short, briskly paced activities. We're not teaching, we're developing the neural pathways to enable them to create meaning with print. I would say each of these activities, and you design your own, this is just an example, 3 to 8 minutes in duration. Each session contains anywhere from 4 to 5. That can go up 1 or down 1. Daily sessions 15 to 30. I recommend keeping it closer to 15 and 20. If you're doing small groups, it's going to probably take you a little bit longer to do this. This is, I use this individually, but it can be adopted. I start every session with the language experience approach, and if, again, you think this is too elementary, don't do it. I'm using this with 4th graders reading at the high 1st grade, low 2nd grade. Individually, I say, what do you want to write about today? We have a minimum of 5 sentences. You could do this in small group or large group. What would you like to write about? What should be in our... We put the date on it. As they read, they can see the sentences forming on the page. After they've completed, minimum of 5, you reread until fluency is achieved. Individually, I use scaffolded oral reading. In large or small group, you can use choral reading until fluency is achieved, keeping your finger moving. Then I use analytic phonics. There's a word here that begins with the t sound. Who knows what it is? A word here that ends with a st. So I'm reinforcing vowel sounds in the words they have just written. And then I usually call on a student who would like to do a riddle. And then the student will say a word here that begins with the m sound. This takes, I would say, 5 to 7 minutes. The nice thing about this is you develop relationships, you make connections, and you get to see what's going on in students' lives. I date these and save them for reading practice. Usually on Friday, we go back and read everything they've read that week. If you're working in a small group, you can print these off and use them for reading practice. Maybe even have students draw pictures on them to create little books from them. So much you can do with this. I really like this as a strategy. This was the first week, by the way. Once they got to know me, then they were beginning to talk a little bit more. Once they found out I was really interested in what they had to say. Word building focuses on large unit phonics, but instead of seeing a word in isolation, I want them always to see the word in context. This may be a little low. We can always bump it up. It is b-ad. And then they see it. We read it together. I am glad. Yes. You can do this a variety of ways. You can go b-ad. So they see it, or you can actually, I am glad. And you notice these are all reinforcing the short A sound. So they're beginning to notice, and there's activities we can do to notice letter patterns. May's, again, short A. Brad had a blank day at school. These go rather quickly, and they have to select the correct short A word. Here we're developing the semantic cueing system, so they learn not to look at every individual letter, but use the context. If you see efficient readers, their eyeballs go like this, back and forth. They don't go word by word. And we want them to be efficient readers using clues on both sides of the word to create meaning with print. I am blank, you came today. And you can do these a variety of ways. In large group, you could have one student read to the other. Brad had a blank day at school. You can read it together. Limited only by your imagination here. You can have pairs read it. You can have volunteers. Sentence dictation. This and a reinforcing letter patterns, but this also, any writing activity develops the syntactic, grammar, and word order cueing systems. I say the sentence, students write it, then I ask them, are there any words that just don't look right? Draw a line under it, and then you show them the sentence. Sometimes if they're working in pairs, and then they cross out the word and write the correct one on top. I like them to see both the misspelling and the correct spelling. And they skip a line and they do the next one. And there's 3 of these. I sometimes have them work in pairs. One student can be the writer, the other checker, and together you look for stumble words, or else pass it back and forth, right, or they both write. I like working in pairs. The conversation that takes place is often very helpful. There's just 3 of these. Sight word maze. Again, we're reinforcing sight words here. This is done real quickly. And I'm using, again, notice there's a short A word in every sentence. I'm reinforcing. This should be rather easy for them. Again, I don't want to frustrate them. I want to keep this within their zone of proximal development. We're not teaching, we're developing neural pathways here. Priming picture. If they have a journal, and I like each student to have a journal to write in, I give a picture like this and say, what do you want to say about that picture? And they simply, in their journal, you must have at least 2 sentences to say something about this picture. If they're on a computer, you can give each student this picture and put it in a Word document, do a lot of different things. I have several different writing activities. This is one of them, and I'm just showing you one of them. Close is the mainstay. I had a blank dream. And after a couple weeks, you find that students get very good at this. They don't need all the stinking letters. They can usually figure it out with a single letter. And over 2 or 3 weeks, you see them developing their ability here. And I usually have 8 to 10 of these. It goes real quickly. And again, you notice there are short A words in each one. Word discrimination. You can do this a variety of ways. Which word goes with the picture? Now notice, short A. Some have similar first 2 letters. Some have similar last 2 letters. They have to parse. This is one of the few activities in which they encounter a single word out of context. But this invites them to look very carefully at them, and they find the right one. You can do this a number of different ways. They can hold up numbers if you want to number them. Mad. You could have them, if you're working individually, you have them point to it. You could have them write the correct one. Individually or small group, I like it to go real quick. So, you might want to think about something like this where they just hold up fingers so you get to see real quickly. Or some such thing. We can think about how to adopt and adapt. Sentence mix-up. Short A words again. This is used to develop the syntactic cueing system, word order. Notice a short A. Tell me when you know what the sentence is. And usually students can figure it out right about here. And lots of clues there, and they're all short A. And if your students are reading at 3rd grade level, high 2nd, this may be a little too elementary, but we'd rather start low than high. This one works really good. Use anywhere from 3 to 6 sentences. They work with a buddy. Usually I like to have one buddy do the first 3, the second do the last 3. They read the sentences into an audio recorder. And you have telephones, you have iPads, you have lots of different recorders. They stop, they listen to themselves read and underline any of the stumble words, and that's where a buddy helps them find stumble words. They practice it and reread it again until fluency is achieved, usually 2, no more than 3 times, and then the next buddy. This is a form of retrospective miscue analysis. This is a very simple form of that. It gets them analyzing and looking at their own kind of stumbles. And that is a simple paper activity. And if you're interested in fluency, this is what I do. And you said fluency is good. Okay, I use short passage fluency where I have a silly sentence. They have to read to either a 30 or a 40 word mark. We have higher levels of this. They do it 3 times. I like this because it develops self-efficacy. They can see themselves getting better. You can do this in pair if you're using small groups or large group setting. And then they record their 3 times and they can actually see their times getting better. I use this because anytime you encounter more words in print is a good thing. So even if fluency isn't your thing, you may want to consider this for self-efficacy and just reading practice. It gets them reading more words. And these are just silly ones. And these are 30 and 40. I do have 40, 50, 60. So this is too elementary. And every day I like, with reading practice, and I don't know what your situation is, I like reading A to Z, Raz Plus, because there's stories at all different levels, and but this would necessitate each student have an iPad or a computer. But I like ending every session with reading practice or sometimes a game related to that vowel sound. All right, these are the basic skills. Think about that. If this sounds of interest, we can talk further and maybe develop something. I don't know your students, so I'm kind of talking in the abstract. Good to meet you today.